Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening wherever you are from. Welcome to Daily Insights. Subhash Chandra Goenka is many things. He is a media mogul who set up Zee Entertainment, India's first private TV channel, in 1992. He was a member of parliament who dipped his toes in the world of politics. He is also a philanthropist who helps the less fortunate. But now, he is allegedly branded as a fraudster. At least that's what the Securities and Exchange Board of India (SEBI) thinks. So, what damning evidence have they found to support their claim? In today's episode, we dive into what SEBI revealed in their interim order. The story begins in November 2019. Subhash Chandra's SL Group was going through some turmoil. They had a lot of business interests. But one business in particular was turning out to be quite bothersome: infrastructure. Their infra division, including 7 entities, had to borrow a lot of money to keep building stuff and was neck deep in debt. So, when they borrowed money from Yes Bank, the bank asked for some guarantee. It wanted some assurance that SL would pay back the loan. So, Subhash Chandra found the answer in another group entity, Zee Entertainment. He stepped in and said, "Here is 200 crore rupees in a fixed deposit. It's from Zee Entertainment which we own. If the other companies default, you can take this money and do as you please." On the face of it, there is nothing really wrong with this. He is using money from a sister entity, Zee, to help the infra companies borrow money. But the problem is that Zee Entertainment is also a listed company. He is answerable to its shareholders and the board. And apparently, Subhash Chandra didn't seek the board's permission before he pledged the fixed deposit. Now you could put this down to some oversight, some laxity on his part. But it still riled up a couple of independent directors who were on the board of Zee Entertainment. They resigned from their positions and shot off a complaint to SEBI. They said that Zee's team was taking this oversight too casually. Because here is the thing. If Yes Bank simply used the fixed deposit to settle the dues from the infra companies, that money from Zee was gone. But if SL Infra paid Zee back the 200 crore rupees, everything would be all right. So, SEBI asked Zee if it had got the money back. And Zee said, "Yes, we did. We got it way back in October 2019 itself." It showed SEBI a few receipts of the said money received. Now that should have ended the matter. And SEBI should have quietly gone back to its office. But SEBI smelled something fishy. They wanted more proof. So, they asked for the bank records of all the entities involved in this deal. And let's just say that the money trail they found was shocking. So, when Zee said it had received its dues, well, it was kind of a lie. Here is a sample of what actually transpired. First, Zee took some money out of its coffers and paid an entity called Living Entertainment. These folks then transferred the money to Khoobsurat Infra. Khoobsurat Infra then moved this money to a new company, Spirit Infra Power and Multiventures. And from there, the money was sent to another company, Pan India Infra Projects. Eventually, the money found its way back to SL Green Mobility. And finally, SL Green Mobility transferred the money back to Zee. Since there are multiple entities involved who were all responsible for returning the 200 crores, we have only taken the case of SL Green Mobility, one of the entities involved, to show how they routed their share of the money. Since there are multiple entities involved that were responsible for returning the 200 crores, they repeated the same process for each of the infra companies. And the kicker was, all these transfers took place in the span of just one day. Basically, Zee didn't get any money back. It lost the 200 crores rupees it gave to Yes Bank as a guarantee. And then it took more money out of its pocket, routed it through multiple entities, made it seem like the infra companies paid it back. and declared that it didn't suffer any losses. It even left a note in its FY20 annual report that the company had got the money back. The audit committee gave this a clean chit too. But as SEBI's investigation shows, it all seems like a farce. The folks in charge at Sea Entertainment tried to pull the wool over the eyes of all their shareholders, their board, and even tried to fool SEBI by claiming to have got the money back. So, you can imagine that SEBI isn't pleased. And they didn't mince words in its initial report too. They call it an elaborate scheme orchestrated by the promoter family of Sea Limited. They even said that it appears as if Sea Limited was used like a piggy bank by the promoters. But wait, the story isn't over. Not yet. See, if it was only Zee Entertainment, you might have passed it off as a one-off case. You might have said that the promoters made a mistake once. It's not that big of a deal. Just forgive and move on. But apparently, the rot runs deep. And in the report, SEBI mentions another connected case it investigated last month. The case of Shirpur Gold Refinery, a company that has been listed on the stock exchange since 1986, which is controlled by Subhash Chandra's two sons, Amit and Puneet Goenka. When SEBI started investigating a tip-off about issues at Shirpur in February 2021, they unearthed a level of fraud that was even more egregious than what happened at sea. Now this case is a bit complicated. So, I have simplified and reduced the case to its bare essentials. First things first. Shirpur borrowed around 400 crore rupees from a few banks. It told the bankers that it needed money for its operations. But Shirpur actually didn't use the money for itself. Instead, it handed over the cash to 3 other entities, one of which was called Ultrarex Traders. Now SEBI figured that Ultrarex had connections to the Subhash Chandra family group. But you could turn a blind eye to this deal for now. Maybe Ultrarex wasn't eligible for a bank borrowing and needed help. So Shirpur simply decided to help out a family entity. It handed over 240 crores to Ultrarex. All Ultrarex needed to do was generate some revenues for itself and use that to pay Shirpur back on time. Shirpur could then pay the banks, and no one would be wiser as to what had taken place within the family. All would be fine with the world. But of course, that's not what happened. Ultrarex defaulted on the loan. And if it couldn't pay Shirpur back the money, this essentially meant Shirpur couldn't return the money to the banks either. Hence, Shirpur defaulted too. Now Ultrarex had other creditors that had lent it money. And one of those creditors was a company called Ekmart. When Ultrarex defaulted, Ekmart decided to drag it to bankruptcy court. It wanted to recover its 50 crores rupees from Ultrarex. At this point, Shirpur should have put its hands up. It should have said that Ultrarex owed it some money too. It should have tried to recover that money to pay the banks. But Shirpur made no such fuss. It stayed away from the proceedings. Now this wasn't a wise move, because it meant that even if the bankruptcy court found a way to liquidate Ultrarex's assets, Shirpur wouldn't get any money from the process. Simply because it chose not to ask for it. Weird. But wait, it gets even more weirder. Ekmart, the company that sued Ultrarex, was owned by folks in the Subhash Chandra family too. So basically, Shirpur, which was owned by Subhash Chandra's family, didn't want its money back. But Ekmart, which was also indirectly owned by the family, did. Are you getting confused? We told you things were getting weird. So, what on earth is happening here? Well, it seems that there was a rather nefarious plan in motion here. Once the bankruptcy court declared Ultrarex insolvent, liquidated its assets, and paid Ekmart, it can basically shut shop. And the money it borrowed from Shirpur can be written off. It will just vanish into thin air. Or maybe not. Because we actually do know where it vanished. You see, Altrarex didn't keep those 240 crores for itself. It actually transferred the money to sub-intermediary companies. And it finally wound up at a company called Goenka Infrapower. Now here is something I didn't tell you. And I promise this is the last surprise. When I told you that Amit and Puneet Goenka owned Shirpur, I forgot to mention that the sons actually owned Shirpur via a company called Goenka Infrapower. So basically, Shirpur borrowed money from banks, used a long-winded route to avoid returning it, and sent the money back into the pockets of its promoters, the Subhash Chandra family. Isn't it ingenious? Anyway, there is one thing you should know. Subhash Chandra hasn't been officially named in this Shirpur gold refinery case. He's only been served a notice in the first case involving Z that we told you about. But his son Puneet Goenka has his foot in both pies, Shirpur and Z. And that unfortunately could pose a problem for another deal that has been in the works for a while, the mega merger between Sony and Z that was announced in 2021. Because one part of the deal was that Subhash Chandra's son Puneet Goenka would continue to lead operations in the merged entity. But if SEBI's contention is that Puneet should be barred from any management positions, he can't be part of this merger anymore. Also, if he is being accused of financial fraud, you can bet that Sony's not going to be happy. They'll probably be worried about other skeletons lurking in his closet. And they might want to reconsider everything about the merger. Also, SEBI themselves are sowing the seeds of doubt. They're asking whether the permissions given by the various authorities for the merger should be reconsidered. It is financial fraud after all. Anyway, you can bet that Subhash Chandra's family will appeal SEBI's order. But all we can say is that irrespective of the outcome of that, it has already been quite a steep fall from the top for the Subhash Chandra family. Until then, have a nice day. If you liked this episode, then give a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to see more such insights. Thank you very much for tuning in.